Okay, I'd like to go ahead and spend a few minutes talking about the chapter 8, Psychological Profiling and Rape. First, I wanted to point out that there has been a recent development, and that is a redefinition of rape in the United States criminal justice system. So, using the United States Department of Justice new definition, what we have is, to quote them, the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. Now, this is a new definition that expands on the previous definition. And so, what we will see is obviously an increase in the statistics. That doesn't mean it's an actual real increase. I mean, it may be, it may not be, but because the definition has changed, that we will not be able to compare to the previous years using a different definition. That would be inappropriate to do statistically, but the new definition incorporates a wider range of victimization. Also, please note that rape is considered a crime of violence and power, and that seems to be the primary motivating factor rather than sex. And even though sexual interaction may be one of the factors, of course, the major feature seems to be violence and power and control. If we look at the typologies, you can see some themes and patterns that really differentiate, although there may be some crossover, or there may be some combination of characteristics with the typologies. And so, please note that you don't usually have typology that fits all the characteristics of one and none of the other. In other words, the categories tend not to be mutually exclusive. But the power reassurance rapist wants to reassure themselves of their masculinity and reduce any negative self-image that they have of themselves as a man. And so you can read about the power reassurance. It's easy to remember just thinking that the person wants to reassure themselves of their masculinity, and they use violence and control and sex as a weapon here to reassure themselves. And with the power reassurance rapist, you can see from the profile, they tend to have sexual dysfunctions. They tend to continue their behavior. They may keep a diary of their violence. They may rape every 7 to 15 days and continue this behavior until they're arrested. They may believe that the victim enjoys the rape, and they may also contact the victim later, thinking that they are now in a relationship of some type. The anger retaliation rapist tends to focus more on retribution. They're very angry, and they do this to express their anger. The power and control and the violence is part of their anger process in that regard. And looking at the anger retaliation rapist, you will see some attempts maybe to increase their aggression, to have little planning and kind of an impulsive blitz attack. And also, they may have sexual dysfunctions, and they may express their anger in the crime commission. The power assertive rapist is asserting their established masculinity, that they've already perceive themselves as masculine, and they're simply asserting that behavior, thought, affect process. And so again, you can see the power assertive rapist, that they may again have sexual dysfunctions. They may have no further contact with the victim once they perpetrate their criminal behavior. They may brutalize the victim with physical abuse. And you can review the typology there. The sadistic rapist gains sexual satisfaction through the victim's suffering. And this is the type that would stalk the victim, maybe transport the victim, use gags, bonds, handcuffs, blindfolds, engage in ritual types of sexual abuse, use very degrading language, and increase their violence over time. They may torture, mutilate, and kill the victim. And this is the type of rapist who would be most likely to be diagnosed as a sociopath. I also want to point out that in the new Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is due out 2013, there is a proposed diagnostic category called paraphilic coercive disorder. And this would be, to quote from the DSM-5 from the American Psychiatric Association website, over a period of at least 6 months, recurrent, intense, sexually arousing fantasies or sexual urges focused on sexual coercion. The person is distressed or impaired by these attractions or has sought sexual stimulation from forcing sex on 3 or more non-consenting persons on separate occasions. And the diagnosis of paraphilic coercive disorder is not made if the patient meets criteria for a diagnosis of sexual sadism disorder. In other words, it's possible that rape is becoming a clinical diagnosis. And I am very confident that we'll see much, much more debate about this proposed diagnosis. I also have incorporated some information about hypermasculinity, and you can review the slides there. But hypermasculinity is basically an exaggerated sex type performance. The script, the who, what, when, where, how, and why, is exaggerated in such a way to exceed normative masculine behaviors. And a lot of this work was generated by Professor Mosher from the University of Connecticut. And hypermasculinity characteristics really would be having, kind of a toughness, seen as self-controlling, and engaging in daring or dangerous behaviors, looking at sex as entitlement to demonstrate one's virility, and also looking at violence as necessary. So there may be a focus on aggression, prestige, protection, violence against women, callous attitudes towards women and sexuality. And much of the hypermasculine characteristics seem to come from the socialization process. And so there's hypermasculine scripts, and there's also hypermasculinity scale that is used in scientific research. And this wraps up this video.